Dr. Taylor, you've got a doctorate in aerospace systems engineering, a doctorate in optical science and engineering, master's degree in physics, master's degree in mechanical and aerospace engineering, a master's degree in astronomy, 20 years with NASA, the U.S. Army Space Command. You've worked on a lot of sensitive projects for NASA, DOD, and even now. And now you're the science guy on a paranormal TV show. I wonder how it works in wearing those hats, whether it causes you problems.
Well, George, some people have said, I don't see how you can do that, how that doesn't bother your credibility. But my point about the whole thing is I only talk about things from a scientific perspective and using the scientific method. And just because something sounds weird doesn't mean it's not real. And it doesn't mean that it shouldn't be investigated. I mean, it may be a mundane explanation for why it's weird. It may not be, but until you look, you can't be an ostrich with your head in the dirt, right?
Yeah, I mean, investigating the unexplained is what science is supposed to do, not explain the uninvestigated.
It's the definition of science, and we've kind of reached a point where if you investigate anything that's outside of things that we already know everything about, then you're considered doing fringe work or something along those lines. And that's just not how I see science at all. It's not what scientific method says. It's not what my years of training, scholastic and hands on the job training tell me. So that's not how I'm going to approach it. I don't care what anybody else says about it.
Can you tell us how it came to be that you're part of the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch?
Brandon Fugel had his team out there since 2016 after he bought the place from Bigelow, and they were getting ready to go to a next level of experimentation. And his principal investigator, Eric Bard's a sharp guy, and it became a big problem, bigger problem than one brain, is enough for. And they invited me to come join the team and see if I had some ideas about how to experimentally approach the subject. Eric's more of an observational scientist, and my background is more of poking at things and seeing how they respond. And that's exactly what I've done.
That's a lot of the strategy that you employ on the show is you, in essence, poke the bear. You're trying to provoke a reaction. You don't always know whether you're going to get one, right?
I have no idea what's going to happen. I mean, honestly, that's why, and the guys laugh at me. The first time I met them, I told them flat out that I expected to get out there and find some mundane explanation or some bad actor hiding behind the curtain, then since I've been out there for 3 years now, I realize that there's something going on that I can't put my finger on and is not simply explained away. And the ranch actually does behave. And to say that about a place is bizarre. I would have never caught myself saying that 3 or 4 years ago.
I got to meet you briefly before the show launched, and to say that you were a skeptic is putting it mildly. I mean, you really were, I don't know if you were hostile to the idea, but you figured, hey, I'm going to go out there in 6 weeks, I'm going to have this figured out, right?
Well, I don't know if it was 6 weeks, but I thought that it was going to be something that just with my particular background, that I was going to notice something that, some bad actors using some, spoofing equipment or spy technology or, something like that. Or it was a high technological thing that was happening by accident. And once we got out there, we realized it's much more cryptic, hidden, and at the same time in your face than what I thought. I was completely shocked and surprised by what's going on there.
Season 3 is now underway, and so the public is aware of what happened in season 2. But can you share with us, anyone who hasn't seen the program, the first 2 seasons, the transformation for you? What was the series of events that turned you from a skeptic to somebody who is really curious about what the heck's going on out there?
Yeah, well, the sequence of events is far greater than even what's on the show. But from the very first 30 minutes I was on the property, we suddenly were getting these strange microwave radiation signals that shouldn't have been there. There was no transmitter anywhere. There was no source for them. And they seemed to be coming from all different directions at once, which was pretty much impossible. And then within a matter of weeks, during the experiment, I was exposed to something that set off my personal radiation detection alert system. And there were people standing all around me and their alarm system didn't go off. And I actually got radiation sickness symptoms. And why the guy standing 5-10 feet from me didn't, made no sense. And that really is an eye opener when you get the symptoms of radiation sickness. That'll make you start thinking about things.
Also, an eye opener is that the radiation is transient. It's there. It clearly affected you in a very serious way, and then it's gone.
Within days, we had a specialist team that does this for Navy nuke subs and nuke aircraft carriers and things like that, come out and test every inch of the property, and not an ounce of radiation beyond normal background radiation was found. And that makes no sense. And they checked our meters and said, yeah, your meters were working properly and something triggered it. And that's happened on a couple of different occasions. And then there were several other things. I'd never seen a UFO until I got out there. I've seen more UFOs now than you can count. And that's bizarre. Why? Why is that the case, right?
I know it's hard to believe that what we would call paranormal type events have a relationship to UFOs. I mean, suddenly now UFOs are at least semi-respectable. Congress is holding a hearing on it. The Department of Defense has been looking into it behind closed doors, but somehow there is a relationship between what appears in the sky over the ranch and the strange things that happen in the ground, right? I mean, that's the ultimate mystery.
Yeah, the ultimate mystery is that is paranormal the right way to describe this? Paranormal just means something that's beside what normal or opposite, not normal that we normally see. And what I've been kind of reaching a conclusion toward is we know that our bodies are evolved to see and feel and taste and smell and detect certain things to keep us alive, to keep us from being eaten by saber-toothed tigers or a bear or whatever. But we can only see this much of the spectrum, and there things could be happening all around us, and we just don't see that because we're not evolved to see that. But our brains are still taking in so much data from our sensory system on our body that maybe it's detecting some of the stuff in the background that we've taught ourselves not to pay attention to over generations and generations because it hasn't necessarily been there to eat us, right? And so maybe this stuff has always been there, and we're just now reaching a point that we're able to detect it with scientific equipment and not and realize that we're all not just crazy, that some of these things may be actually real. And I don't necessarily say that I didn't go there looking for ghosts or monsters or whatever. I went there looking for something is causing people to see weird things and have weird experiences, including potential alien interaction or otherworldly interaction. And that really intrigued me. And it continues to intrigue me and baffle me to this day.
It's always, I've been going there for over 20 years. I've never seen anything that I would call paranormal or alien, unfortunately, and have had a pretty good feeling on the property. But the lack of predictability out there, it seems like it really becomes a challenge for you and your fellow team members, because nothing ever happens quite the same. It seems like there's an intelligence there, and it seems like it's trying to teach us something, like it's a learning curve, like, what works and what doesn't. Do you get the sense that there is an intelligence or more than one? Is there a blanket explanation, or are there a bunch of explanations?
I'm not ready to say it's one or the other, but I'm perfectly ready to say it could be either and or both. Or one of them, but I'm kind of getting the feeling from all the data that we've collected so far that this may be multiple phenomena overlapping each other and on top of each other, as opposed to it being just one phenomena. I think of it, what if it's something more like we're standing in an airport and we're being interacted with people from all over the world. What if it's something akin to that we're standing in a location where phenomena from all over the universe somehow are connected to it. And we're seeing the telltale signs of these multiple different phenomena. That could go along with the idea of the portal and that sort of thing, but I really don't know, George. It's a bizarre and baffling place. I do have a thought though about why you may not have ever seen anything.
Yeah, why?
Yeah, so we've had instances where people standing right next to us are pointing at something and somebody else not seeing it. Several people seeing something and one person not. And I believe it may have something to do with the hyperactivity in our brains. If you're on particular drugs, say for ADD, or if you're maybe trying to quit smoking, if you are on some kind of maybe a blood pressure medication or something like that, it may be affecting the centers in your brain that whatever this phenomena is interacting with.
Do you get a sense that the ranch sizes you up? That obviously different people have different reactions, and we know some of the people who went there during the DIA program, bad hombres, tough people, combat veterans. They're there with weapons. It seemed like some of them get the worst of it.
Well, and some of them that I've talked to, they say they'll never go back to that place either, right? And we had in the first season, we went through a few different camera and sound and production people that they were there for a few days or to a week, and they were like that. They didn't care about coming back. Yeah. So does it size you up, and is it picking you out from your experience? Are you projecting something, your personality onto it, and is coming back at you? I don't know, but I can tell you that we've had more things happen to us off camera that were more creepy and bizarre and weird than you can imagine. And it's the kind of thing that if we tried to explain it to people, they would think we're just making it up and it's nuts, because it's just that dang crazy.
Well, I think maybe the strangest aspect that we reported on it when we wrote about it, and some of the colleagues that work there for intelligence agencies, you travel in those circles, maybe you've talked to some of them, but this idea about hitchhikers, and that something attaches itself to you and follows you home. I know Brandon has said that has not happened to him, but a lot of the people who were part of the DIA program and that I know really well, it's happened to them. You want to go there? You want to talk about that?
Yeah, well, I can tell you that a good colleague of mine was there with Bigelow, and I believe he is the one who actually coined the hitchhiker phrase. That once he left the ranch, when he got home, he was talking, I probably to Bigelow on the phone, said, I think something hitchhiked home with me. Yeah, a lot of people don't want to talk about it, but it's something that we need to put sensors on and figure out, because I live in Alabama. That's not anywhere near Skinwalker Ranch. And there are instances when all the electronics in my house get fried. My car starts and stops itself. I've had my chicken coop that I had an electronic system on. I had to get rid of it because it kept opening itself and letting my chickens get out when they're not supposed to be. And the biggest thing is I seem to find microwave signals and gamma ray signals at my house in Alabama that should not be there. So I get concerned about it. And there have been some other things, but again, if I told you about them, you'd think I was making it up.
The last couple of years has been such a sea change, tectonic level in the attitudes of Congress and media, and maybe your colleagues in the defense industries that about UFOs in general. There's a congressional hearing coming tomorrow. Do you find that your colleagues, places where you work now, and I'll ask you about that, want to know, that they're curious? Do they come up with you with questions and want to know what's going on with the show, or do they want to stay away from it?
It's about 50-50, I would say right now, George. And I would say that 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it was more like 10-90, right? Where 10% of the people were curious and interested and 90% wouldn't touch it. Now it's improved a lot. And I think that's because of shows like Ancient Aliens, Unexplained, Skinwalker Ranch. We're showing people that there's something out that's there. And if you're supposed to be a trained scientist or engineer, then you're supposed to be asking these questions, instead of running away and hiding from these questions. I think the perception has changed, is changing, and I think it's going to continue to change. But there's still folks that want to, for some reason, and I can't figure out why, say, "Oh, it's just weather balloons, it's swamp gas, it's drones." When you can show them the evidence right in front of them that tells them it is absolutely not either of those three things.
We got a congressional hearing, first public hearing in Congress before a congressional committee in 54 years. It's tomorrow, 24 hours from now when we're recording this. Would you expect to ever be called to testify, either behind closed doors, or I know you know some of the people who have been before the committees and the senior staff. You think that's a worthwhile way to pursue this?
Well, I honestly think that the people in the committees, the HIPSI and the SISI and the Senate Armed Services Committee and the science committees, even, they need to hear from real scientists like myself that these phenomena are real, are being measured, and they are there. In my mind, there's a potential for a disruptive technology to be created and a national security incident to occur. And so someone needs to be listening to people who have actual data and insight on the topic, rather than listening to a talking head who has an opinion on it, but no data or experience with it.
That's right. Radiance Technologies is your employer.
Yes.
I read the release in April about you going to work for them. And some of those projects, it almost is euphemisms. They're very generic sort of explanations about the kind of things you're working on. And then yesterday, we put out a notice about your new colleague, John Stratton, who was the head of the UAP task force. The two of you working together is, I think, the kind of news that will get people's imaginations working overtime. What are those guys building down there? Are they making spaceships? Have they got alien technology? Is there anything you could share about what that venture will be? And does it help you in trying to understand what's going on at the ranch?
Well, so John Jay, as we call him, Stratton, he and I have been colleagues for a long time. I've known him in the defense industry circles, and we've worked together, and I'll leave it at that for now. But what our goal is here at Radiance is to continue the same kind of work, to do what we can do in the private sector that we couldn't do in the government sector, and actually go places, do the experiments, get the research, get the data, and see if we can come up with new answers and a new approach.
One last question. Late at night, as you're pondering all the things that have happened to you at the ranch and your colleagues out there, do you ask yourself, is this solvable? Can you use the scientific method to come to an answer? Or is this going to be something that is always tantalizingly just out of our reach?
It's really interesting. You asked that. Not more than 3 weeks ago, I had a dream. It was a really odd dream. I was standing on the side of a creek, throwing large rocks into it to build stepstones so I could walk across to the other side, but they kept sinking. And these two Ute natives came up to me. One was a very old elderly one, and one was a young one. And the elderly one looked at me and just kind of shook his head and pointed to the young one. And the young one said, "He says you're not going to solve this with science." And then they walked away.
Wow. Wow.
So I don't know if that's the ranch talking to me, if that's my subconscious rolling that over, if it's somehow, and I've talked to, a rabbi, a good friend of mine, Rabbi Ariel's a doc, and I've talked to William Henry, who's a spiritual guru, and both of them asked me, he says, "Well, do you think that was coming from you or from somewhere else?" And I said, "I don't know the answer to that."
Well, Travis, I've got to see some of what's coming in season 3, and it's really fun. And I hope you get a season 4, because it's fun, it's important, and it may be the most important thing you ever tackle in your life.
I have to agree with you on that, George. I think it's it's a moral imperative. There's some nights that are harrowing out there. I do. At home, I have no problem sleeping and never have in my life, but when I'm out there, I usually have night terrors. And I think it's related to something that's there, and I haven't figured that out yet. But my wife asked, "Why do I go back out there?" I said, "Well, because somebody has to get to the bottom of this thing and figure out what is going on out there. Is it of greater importance, or is it a localized importance?" And I think it's so significant. I think it's of a greater moral imperative, not just for us as a nation, but also as humanity.
Dr. Taylor, thanks very much for your time. We'll be watching the show.
Thank you. Thank you.